Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Old Dudes, New Tricks. We're still going, and we want to thank you guys for listening. I'm here in Lexington and been watching basketball all day, but I'm kind of glad to get back into this podcasting thing. It's been a week since we've done one, and it's nice to see you again, Gary. How you doing, man?
Good. I keep forgetting a couple things. We forget to promote that the podcast is now on YouTube.
Yes.
So go there. We don't have our URL yet, but look up Old Dudes, New Tricks podcast, because the URL is some scrambled YouTube garbage until we get, I don't know, so many views or whatever. And I keep forgetting that I have done some product reviews, one for Gen Y hitch, which is a drop-down tow hitch, and bolt lock, which is a locking pin lock that goes along with it. So I have to get those in because those people trusted me to review their product, and I need to mention it because that's what good hosts do. And one day I'll make millions of dollars for people sending me stuff, and I'll be happy.
Well, one of the things we're here to talk about today is entrepreneurship because, Gary has been an entrepreneur now for years since he got out of the government service. And, one of the goals I want to do is it's about freedom. We talk about freedom on here all the time. And, I'm stuck in a not even 9-to-5 job, but a second shift job in a manufacturing plant, get paid well, have responsibilities and stuff like that, taking care of my family, but that's not the life that I want to live. So one of the things we want to do on this podcast is get people on that live that lifestyle that maybe can inspire you if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching the video to maybe want to do something like this yourself. So what we've done today, we have Aaron Frankel, and Aaron is the host of the In the Rabbit Hole podcast. And Aaron, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, guys, I'm excited to be part of y'all's new podcast. This is awesome.
Well, one of the great things about having Aaron on, Aaron kind of helped me get the podcast set up. He did a video conference with Gary and then recorded it all, and I went through it. So I want to publicly thank you for helping me out with that, because without you, man, people think, and I thought the same thing, you do a podcast and you do it and you just throw it right up on iTunes and you do it, you're good to go. Yeah. This is a pain in the ass.
Yes.
The podcast is the easy part. Sitting here and talking and getting guests and having a good time is the easy part. But after that, it's an hour or two of work to get it up, and you have to really focus on getting it right. So thanks a lot for helping me out with that.
Yeah. Oh man, hour and a half, man. You've got your process down. I still take forever. I think mine, this is a funny thing. I actually just posted something on the membership page on Facebook for my listeners. And because I get asked from time to time, one of them will want to get into podcasting. And I also have a podcast consulting company as part of my marketing firm. And really sweet woman, brilliant woman. And she wanted to leave her, the bank that she was working for. And she wanted to start doing podcasting and voiceover work. And she was asking me questions about it. She's like, how much time do you spend with your podcast? Is it like an hour or two? And I was like, oh, no. For every minute I spend recording, there is about 4 minutes worth of editing that goes into it on a good day. If I have a good guest that doesn't stutter and can make their point, and then I've got at least another 2 hours of just stuff that I've got to do, writing the show notes, getting it posted, doing all the post-production work and everything else. And so each episode is easily a 5 or 6 hour project to get it out. Now, I tend to over-edit my shows a little bit, but it's still, and it was funny, I just posted a video because someone else was asking me again what my editing process is like. And I just did a 5-minute screen capture and threw it up there on the membership site for him to watch. And it was just this flood of, oh my God, I'll never listen to the show the same way ever again. I'm like, now you get to see the end result. You get to eat the cupcakes. You don't get to see all the baking that went on. So.
And when I say hour and a half, I'm not counting the editing. I'm just talking about the actual go to this site, put it up, wait for it to render, wait for it to download, and then take it from that site. So I mean, that's it's a time. I would say, what is it? 3 websites you have to go through, or web hosting sites, just to get it on iTunes. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a grind.
Yeah, it's a real grind. And I think with mine, I had an extra layer because for my members, I released the show on a private membership site where they can listen to it the night before it airs publicly. And I also give them a video version of it that gets posted in their Facebook group. And so even after all that, then I got to run around setting it all up for the members. So yeah, it's a lot of work, and people don't realize how much work podcasters put into what they do.
Well, and everyone gets rich off podcasts, right? That's why everyone does.
Yeah.
That's the part that I love too, is people would ask me, they'd go, Gary, you need to do your own podcast, and then we can ask you all these health questions and get all this stuff for free and not buy your books. It'll be great. And, and that's kind of, first of all, I just said, hey, I don't have time, between trying to run a business, trying to write blogs, videos, and you throw a podcast in there, and it's too much. It becomes overwhelming. And that's why it was great that Dwayne, we'd been talking about it. He finally said, hey, let's just do it. And I went, hey, I know someone who does one, and let me ask him, a couple people actually, let me ask, but first I thought of you because you had a pretty good system in place. I went, have him run us through it maybe, and you offered and you video recorded it for us and took us through all the steps, which was great. But it confirmed once Dwayne saw video, he kind of went, oh shit. I told you, that's the reason why I have not done it. There's so much work involved. And again, people don't understand. A podcast doesn't make money. You have to have people listen to it. Then you have to have a good following. Then you sell advertising, or you're promoting a product. There's got to be something to it. I would guess that at least 90+%, if not more than that, make zero money. It could be high as 99%.
I would do 98% are probably making absolutely nothing or near nothing off their shows. They're just unlisted. And that's why so many shows.
Oh, hold on. Oh, sorry.
You need a cough button.
You can do like Wile E. Coyote with science. That's why so many shows end up disappearing. And listeners will get frustrated. Listeners will get frustrated, and I don't blame them, because you get invested in a new show and you get excited about a new show, and then it's there for 3 months and then it disappears, and usually it disappears without any warning or reason. Mm-hmm. And the reason is people get into it thinking, oh, it'll be fun, we'll just make a little show, which is actually how mine started originally too. And then you realize how much work it is. Like, each episode you put out for a lot of people ends up being a work day, essentially.
Yep.
And then the wife says, that's not going to work for me. Or the kids say, that's not going to work for me. Or just life says, that's not going to work. And yeah, it's tough. It's a tough business. But it is fun.
Let's go back and talk about, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. What did you do before you got into your little entrepreneurship business?
Well, that goes back quite a ways. So I was in architecture, and I think it was this was almost 20 years ago now. And I decided, like a lot of people, I didn't want to be an architect. I loved school. I loved theory. I still love architecture. I love design. But the day-to-day grind of doing it, I hated it. And I hated working for somebody else. And so I kind of quit without knowing what I was going to do. My parents had owned a pretty large and fairly successful company, and they were second generation in the business. And at the time, this was very early on in the internet, and I had played around with the internet and kept my architectural portfolio online. And so I knew how to build websites, or I thought I knew how to build websites. And they had nothing for their business. And Dad kept kind of pouring money down a rat hole, trying to find somebody to build a website for them. So I went to him and said, look, I don't need much. I just need to cover my mortgage. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I think I'd like to be an entrepreneur. I think I'd like to be a business owner. Can I come in and do this thing for you that you need? Maybe I'll do it for 2 or 3 years, get you up and running, and then I'll go do my own thing. And I ended up staying for maybe 10 years.
Wow.
And a lot of the reason I stayed, even though it was a family business, and if anybody's ever been involved in a family business, you can understand just how much fun and excitement that can be. Because I was learning, it was like drinking from a fire hose. And it was funny. There were employees that thought like, oh, because his name's on the building too, it's an easy ride. My dad was a smart guy, or my dad and my mom smart. They said, okay, we gave you a computer for school. There's a folding table over in the corner. Bring your computer from home. You set up in that corner over there. We'll pay you the bare minimum you need to get by in life. and you show us a website. And that's what I did. I just started banging out code, and I knew nothing about building e-commerce systems. And so for me, that's where it started. It was, I would run into these roadblocks and go, oh, okay, well, I can build a website, but people need a way to buy from the site. So how do I do it? And then I would go learn about and look at other websites and read about it and try to get as much free information as I could, and slowly built it up. And there were a lot of really nasty growing pains. I learned a lot of things about employees, and that having grown up in a family business, and you don't, and this is kind of the overprivileged white kid problem everybody talks about these days. And you grow up and you only see a very negative side of that business, and you don't understand what goes on, and you don't understand the frustration, and you get in it. And I got in it and thought, I'm going to do it all differently. And that massively blew up in my face. And very long, some of them very comical stories, but all along the way, learned trial by fire, and would constantly uncover different problems. As we got into e-commerce, we started having a problem with how do you balance real-time inventory between a store that's moving inventory and an online system when you're both feeding from the same inventory, and trying to show that in real time, and building those systems out, and then going, oh, we've got this customer service nightmare where basically everyone hates us. Why do they hate us? And then going, oh, and then spending months to finally figure out it was we had a terrible return policy. And there was this weird animosity that developed because of the return policy. An animosity was developing between the customer service agents and the customers. And so you just start unearthing all these weird little things. And then one day you go, oh, wow, you know, this 10,000 square foot, 2-story warehouse is completely put together all wrong for the kind of business we're doing now. So now I got to go learn about warehousing theory and inventory control and completely rebuild that. And so for me, that's where it really started. And then having to learn about marketing and going back to school for all that and doing all these different things, that is where my journey began. And as much fun, that doesn't seem like a nutshell, but it actually was 10 years compressed into a nutshell.
Well, that's a lot of information. I mean, there's so much going on there that you mentioned that a lot of people, to include myself, being a dumb knucklehead former government employee, I didn't understand, you know, as far as distribution systems, how e-commerce works. I saw a commercial that told me all I got to do is click here, click there, get a host site, and it's free. It's like $5 a month, and I got e-commerce and I sell stuff.
Yeah.
And you soon learn. I think when I started, what was the big one? Was it Square? Not Square. I'm trying to remember. There was a website / design company that had come out. I have Square in my mind, but I'm not positive on that. I don't think that's it. And what it was is it advertised that. So I go on there and I go, okay, I'm going to build my website. I'm going to get this all set up. And I got in there and I went, this sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. I couldn't even get a banner up. It was so user unfriendly. And I think it's good to talk about this today because podcasting is pretty hot. Having your own e-commerce website is hot. Everyone thinks that these are easy to do and that all they got to do is quit their job, read a couple books by people who never did it, but write about it in theory. And all you got to do is work 2 hours a year to make $3.5 billion and retire on your own island. I mean, some of the stuff that comes out, it's such bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's so out there, but people who learn from what I do is that I'm a realist. You may not like what I'm going to tell you, but you're going to get the real story. And, you know, like my book that came out, you know, people go, oh, man, that's a little dose of reality. And I go, well, yeah. If you want to get a dose of reality, like this perfect example, all the shows on teeny homes and off-grid are remodeling. Those are beauties. I go, that is not how it goes on TV. I go, if you want to watch a show on how you get a taste of how it really goes, watch Building Alaska. That shows you the nitty gritty. And even they take out all the bad stuff. But that is what real, true remote living, remote building is like. That show, that's the closest show that I've seen. Now, on the business side, I don't know. Is there anything out there that you would recommend that's out there that is pretty close for an entrepreneur?
I can, as far as books go, I cannot say that there is one book I've ever read that really laid it out truly well. There's a lot of really great business books out there. You have to be committed to reading them and studying them, especially if you get into marketing or any of the more technical things that quickly become as much art as science. And I never came across any that were really good. There was one that I can't remember the name of it. And it's actually, oddly enough, I do still have technically an office up at my parents' company, and the book is sitting up there. And it was the book I read where I finally went, oh yeah, I got to leave. I got to go do my own thing. It's time. And it was a book on family businesses. And it was talking about family businesses and the dynamics that happens between the different generations as a business goes. And my brother was in the business too. And so we were the third generation in the business. And the business still exists. I'm talking like it's not there. It still exists. And so that was one, and I can't think of the name of it. I wish I could, but I've come across a lot of great books, but none that gave a complete story, and none that I would say really hit home for just how hard entrepreneurship actually is and how it's really not for everyone. In fact, I would say it's not for most people. And that's not to say I'm some magical wizard or I have something, but there are qualities that you have to have. And some of those qualities, you won't have all of them at first, but you'll develop them over time. But there are definitely qualities you have to have that are not normal qualities. And most of them, I would say it's because we're masochists. And that's kind of the defining quality of being an entrepreneur.
There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain involved. So yeah.
I would say, Michael, we get fed this from birth in the United States that capitalism and entrepreneurship is the way to go. So people that have no business trying to start a business thinks that, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be. And then they flame out and wonder what happened, Yeah.
It's tough. And I think what the other thing is, everybody's sold on magical fairy dust answers that, oh yeah, like you were saying earlier, just quit your business and it'll be easy. It's not. It's really not. There are a lot of great resources out there, but it's not easy. It's very stressful. It's very hard on family life. It's just very hard, period. And you have to be willing and have to accept that you're going to get hit in the face, and you're going to get hit in the face hard on a somewhat regular basis. And you've got to be ready to stand back up and do it again, or go back to getting a regular job. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Well, I think that's what has caused it too, is that some of these books almost poo-poo going back out in the normal world. I actually had a conversation with an individual, a young individual, who was asking me how I built my stuff and how I was doing it. And one of his answers, or one of his statements to me was, well, I either need to make it because I don't want to have to go work for the postal service or something. And I lit the kid up. I went, what's wrong with going out and getting a job and learning something? I went, what's the problem with that? And he just kind of was shocked that I just lit into him. I said, you know what, if that's the attitude you have, I can't help you. If you think that a job is beneath you, a normal working job that many people would be happy to have, that you just can't do that, that's what other people do. Dude, that's a wrong attitude. That's the wrong attitude. That's the guy that's going to sell you a bottle of snake oil so he can pay his bills, or, he's the guy that drives the Ferrari and you can't figure out how he affords the Ferrari. Well, again, it's because he doesn't have any business ethics, and he thinks that everyone, and I've noticed that people who kind of migrate towards that attitude, they tend to be the ones who are getting sued all the time, don't pay their bills, steal other people's products, do all and that's not what business is about. Unfortunately, I think in America today, me as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I've felt that the good people doing it right is almost an anomaly. There's a lot of people out there that are cutting corners, trying to figure out how to take a buck out of your pocket, and they don't give a shit how they do it. No customer service or poor customer service, really bad products made in China that they're bringing in by the container load. They don't know how they're made, what's in them, don't care. And that's, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, and I've heard this several times, and this is why I did it. And I don't want to seem like I'm altruistic or some great, moral highlight or something. I did it because I got out of the government. And I wanted to do something I enjoyed, and I wanted to help people. And people go, oh, that sounds like a great answer. Well, no, I truly wanted to help people. I spent a large part of my life making other people's lives miserable. Everything I dealt with was someone doing something wrong and me trying to catch them doing that wrong thing and put them in a box, basically, you know? So there's a lot of negativity and a lot of not helping people. Even though the whole theory behind law enforcement, all that is to help the greater good. But unfortunately, you don't see it as the end where I was at. I just saw the negative because I was dealing with bad people all the time. So I was like, enough of that. Let me do something else. But that's where I started. I said, how can I help people? What can I create to help people with the knowledge that I have? And that's the best advice I got. Because someone told me that too. They go, hey, do something you love, do something you're passionate about. And that way you'll never work a day in your life. And when we're young, we're all, that's a bunch of BS, whatever, grandpa, shut up. I don't want to hear that. And it's true. Find something but the thing is, there's a catch. It's not just because you enjoy it. There's a lot of things I enjoy to do that are not going to make me a dime. So that is not just the only answer, but, find something useful. I had a passion for health. I had been in the health industry, athletics, multiple academies, all this stuff, worked for the FDA. Well, that was kind of a no-brainer. Okay, I'll go somewhere in the area of health and use the knowledge that I have to help other people. Okay, that's one thing. Now, how do I make a living off that? Again, it's all theory. And that's where it becomes about the individual. And then there's all this, got to start a business. Is it going to be e-commerce? Is it going to be, a brick and mortar? Is it going to be a combination of the both? Is it going to be one-on-one consulting services? Is it going to be a personal trainer? Is it going to be a health It just goes all over the place.
Yeah. Am I going to have employees? Am I going to carry physical products? Where are those physical products going to live? Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I think that's a good transition because we can, all of us can get out in the weeds, especially me and Aaron. You get us together, we'll talk about all kinds of random stuff. Let's talk about the five. Was it the 5 principles of entrepreneurship that you have?
No, it's the 5 personality traits.
That's what it was.
Five defining characteristics of entrepreneurs that I've met that stick with it and are successful with it. And the very first one is one that I've kind of already alluded to, which is resilience. If you're not somebody who can fail and fail well and get up, dust yourself off, and immediately go right back into it again, then entrepreneurship, not for you at all. I think what ends up happening, and actually I do have to take back, there is a really good business book. It's not all encompassing, and I think that's part of it, is there's none that are all encompassing. It's the E-Myth Revisited is a really great book. And he refers to it as the entrepreneurial seizure. People who are a technician or do something over and over and think, oh, well, I'm going to go do it for myself. And they don't know anything about running a business. They just know how to do the thing. And they end up spending their lives working in the business as opposed to on the business. And that is what's the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who works for a company. An entrepreneur works on the business. They do end up having to work in the business too, especially at first. But your attention really has to be focused on constantly working on the business itself, improving the processes and doing all these things. And all of that is where resilience really comes into play, because you're going to have massive failures. You never know. I've done because for a long while I did marketing consulting, and I still do marketing consulting, but have a firm that specializes in that. And I did marketing for best-selling authors. And we would do these big, huge marketing campaigns that we would spend a year planning out. And you're thinking, this is sexy. This is going to be it. And it's, as the marketing director in this situation, all the budget, all the success, all the failure, it all rides on your shoulders. And you pull the trigger and no one buys.
Wow.
And it's humiliating. It's frustrating. Everybody's pissed at you. You don't know if you're going to have a job the next day or a client the next day or what's going on. And that is the nature of being in business. When I was starting up the e-commerce department for my family's business, it was the same thing. There were, we must have gone through 4 or 5 different shopping cart systems over the years. And you spend a whole bunch of time, whole bunch of money. I know one of them, it took us 14 months to migrate into this new shopping cart system. We were in that shopping cart system for 60 days, and we almost wound up in a lawsuit with that shopping cart company. It was a steaming pile of dog, just diarrhea. It was just terrible. And, you know, that's on you. And that department in that instance I was treated as the owner of that part of the business. And so it all fell on me. And I had to get back up the next day and do it all over again. I couldn't, or I could have, but I chose not to because I'm a masochist, to just say, well, I could just go back to architecture, just drawing pretty pictures, or drawing, in my case, drawing really horrible shopping malls. And, and so that is the first thing. It's that willingness to fail big, fail publicly, be humiliated in front of friends and family, and say, that sucked, and do it over again. I think, you know, in some ways, maybe I grew up horseback riding. That was like a really big thing. And that was always, and it's a cliche, you get bucked off the horse, you get back on again. It was a real thing. You would see kids that I grew up with and rode with, if they got bucked off and if they didn't get back on that day, they never got back on again. And it's the same thing in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Well, you make some very good points, because I don't have any entrepreneurs. My family had a little bit of it when I was young, but for the most part, I didn't have any banking or any bankroll behind me. I literally created this on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. My business model originally started with a thought and an idea after the government of, what am I going to do? And I have failed. I've restarted several times. It's been absolutely painful. But also, once you get so far along, you realize if you have the bug and you're truly passionate about it, and I've heard a lot of us say this, you know, I hang around with mainly entrepreneurs now,
yeah,
is that I cannot go back to my life before. That's the common statement we all say. If I had to sit in a cubicle at this day and grind out 9 to 5, I wouldn't make it 2 weeks. It would be like putting, you know, the animal in the zoo. Eventually they go nuts. And there's just no way. There is. Yeah. I could not function in that kind of atmosphere anymore. So it kind of lights a fire under you too, that, okay, I know that's not for me now. So I have to keep at this and make this work. Also, everyone thinks that as soon as you start, you're going to make money. And the stats are truly the first 3 years you lose money. Mm-hmm. And that's not paying yourself. There's no salary. You're in the red, period. Yeah. You've spent your savings. You've sold that, you know, that nice car you had. Now you're driving around in the 15-year-old 4-cylinder beat up truck that you got off Craigslist. You know, you haven't bought clothes in like 5 years. Trust me, I've been through this. I cashed out my 401k, got rid of I did everything. And I downsized as much as I could to make everything work. And I was lucky I was single, but the struggle that I don't think most people understand, because a lot of the books, again, are BS. You know, the fake it till you make it. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's made it as a true entrepreneur with an idea starting from scratch that it's been painless. It's been
I've never heard of it.
And it's a long-term deal. And that's one thing I want to get clear to people too, is I started originally over 5 years ago now. 3.5 years I've just hit in the primal power method form of my company. I redid everything, had to fire a marketing guy, start completely over. He was ripping off a competitor. I didn't know it. I never could really prove it, but it was weird that I tended to be doing all the same things as this other guy was doing. And he kept pushing me in that direction. And I just finally said, okay, dude, enough. But it's a long-term deal. I know that on average, just talking to people, and some of the books I've read, which are some haven't been pretty close, is that it's a 3 to 5 year mark before you have a clue if this thing's even going to survive, not thrive, if it's just going to float, basically, and you may be able to pull out some money out of it. Otherwise, for the most part, people that I've talked to, it's usually the 10-year mark where they've hit a stride. Now they're paying themselves a regular salary. They may have a couple employees. You know, it depends. Obviously, there's different variants of that success ladder. But in general, that's what I've heard. Does that sound pretty close to what on your end of dealing with what you've dealt with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know when my parents bought their business from my father's mother, my father had a hair salon, and he kept that salon, and my mother would run their company during the day, and he would check in and he would take care of stuff and do bills and deal with the accountants and stuff like that a couple hours a day. Most of the day he was in there cutting hair, and a lot of the money, basically the salon supported the family while their costume company tried to really get off the ground. And this was already, for the most part, an established company. But it was like brand new because they were having to pay my grandmother for that. They had bought the company from somebody else, and they didn't have the money to buy it. So they were paying that out of the profits of the business, which no profits. And it was a good 10 years, I think, before they paid themselves a salary and took any money out of the business. And then my father finally shut down his hair salon. So, because he was just like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do both. So and most other businesses, and I have a very dear friend who I love to death, and she has this amazing company that ended up getting bought by, I wish I could tell the full story, I can't really, but got bought out by a Fortune 100, and they were nice enough to basically say, we're your board of directors, but you, as long as you keep this train running, it's yours. And it was about 10 years before she hit that mark. And before that 10 years, every day was a new, when she tells me the story, every day was a new worry, this is it. This is the last day. We're going out of business. We're going to lose everything. And that's a pretty common story. And with my podcast, and my podcast is not a big business. And really, I don't think I'm even ready for it to be a big business, but just to get it to pay for itself and maybe pay for the amount of time I spend on it. And it took me 5 years to even really figure out what I wanted to do with it and how I wanted it to be monetized in a way I felt good about. And then from there, it's probably going to be another year or two before I take it to the next phase, and it hopefully actually starts bringing in money that my wife stops, saying, why do you keep doing this? So
yeah,
which is the thing which goes back to resilience. You'll hear that over and over. Why do you keep doing this? So.
Well, yeah. What's that rule that the best time to look for a job is when you already have one?
Yeah. And it's funny. Go ahead.
It's kind of the same thing. The best time to start your own business is when you have a good job.
Yeah.
And do it on the side and don't go quit it. Because I've read a lot of books that say that too. Oh, just go quit your job and just start and fling it out there. And the good books I've read are like, no. The best time is if you have either an income or you've put enough money away to be able to do it for a while. And that's totally true. If you have to rely on entrepreneurship right out of the gate, the failure rate's got to be high 90s.
Well, I mean, you look at restaurants, like here in Lexington, we are famous for just restaurants, and they turn so fast. You get these people that think, all right, we have all these successful restaurants. I love to cook. I'm passionate about it. I'm going to open up a restauant.
Grandma's cheesecake recipe. Yeah,
exactly. And then in 2 months, they're gone. We had one that was just right around the corner of our place, and it looked promising, and it was the third restaurant in like 5 years that had been there, and one did well, that had been there for a long time, and then it failed, and then another one opened up, failed quickly, and then this one opened up, and it's in a great location with no parking anywhere. So you got to have a good product. So we go in there a couple of weeks after they open, and we're eating, and it was kind of a Mexican restaurant, and I'm sitting there, I'm eating the burrito, and my mind, I'm thinking, man, I could have made this. I could have made this burrito. And then the owner comes up and he's like, hey, thanks for coming, all this stuff. How do you like the burrito? And I want to say, I could have done this at home.
Yeah.
Better, and I felt sorry for the guy, but he was so enthusiastic. And then, 2 weeks later, it's gone. And I'm like, man, how much money did they just absolutely shit out, and it's gone.
And restaurant businesses are famous for failing. The burn rate on restaurants is super, super high. And
you can't have another job. You can't have another job and then run a restaurant either. So, I mean, this guy, it failed, but he was putting all his time and energy into it. So he
Mm.
couldn't have had a backup plan, you know. And you're talking about resilience and having a job. You know, I've got a job and I want to be an entrepreneur, but I have no inclination of quitting my job. In fact, my job motivates me to do this.
Yeah.
And work harder at it to make it successful. So you know, when I'm at work, I'm thinking, man, you know, I've got to keep working to get out of this, which is a good job, out of this and to transition to something else. So
yeah, in between when I was going to do something, when I got out of the government, I was kind of lost, to be honest with you. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. I had an idea. I mean, the idea was there, but I was still like, well, am I going to do something else? And I went, well, you know, I'd really like, the dream had always been to start my own business. And this was a point, and I went, okay, you know what I did? I actually volunteered and worked for a guy for 4 months for free.
Mm.
He couldn't afford to pay me. He was a small entrepreneur too, but it was one of those things that I got really invaluable knowledge out of it. And eventually he was all, hey, I'll bring you on, I'll pay you. And at a point I went, you know, I don't think this is for me, but I appreciate the knowledge. And that way, when I left, because even when I went in there for free and he started talking about paying me, I was uncomfortable. The reason I went in there for free was because it was non-committal in the sense that I just wanted to learn. I didn't want to run right back working for someone else again. So it was one of those, it worked out really well. And when I mentioned that to that kid who got all flustered about having to go get a job, I said, why don't you go volunteer? You know, why don't you go ask someone to tag along for, you know, a couple months if you can do it and learn something. Mm. And again, the answer I got was, well, that's a good idea, but I could tell he wanted nothing to do with that. And that's part of it too, is if you don't have a background in any of this, you're going to have to learn it somehow. I came in with very little knowledge, but I read a ton of books. Some screwed me up, some were helpful, but I probably read 100 entrepreneur books, self-help, all kind. I read everything I could find. Blogs, looked at YouTube videos, everything, marketing courses. For me, I got pieces out of it, but I didn't get any integration. Where I got the integration and hands-on experience was volunteering for free. Mm. Because basically I did everything I was going to do as if I was paid. I just wasn't being paid. So, and that's kind of a way to look at it too, that you got to learn it some way. So you either learn it on a job, or if your job sucks and you don't have the ability to go do that, well, then you got to start it from scratch, do it on the weekends at night, you know, build this thing up, figure out what you're going to do, test it, see if it's going to work. Guess what? If it doesn't work, your life's not going to end. You just start over again. You already got a job. You know, and I think that's the best route. I know there's a lot of people now who the economy's been tough. They've lost their job and created some beautiful businesses out of that situation. But those are great stories for TV. That is not how the real world works in general. Those people, I wouldn't say right place, right time. They're obviously, you know, hardworking, the ones I've seen and heard the stories about. But some, I'll be at least half were right place, right time, or there's more to the story that we just weren't seeing behind the scenes. You know, there's a couple, like that girl who created that fingernail polish juggernaut. What was that? It's still around. It's some huge company.
Which one is this?
It was, I think she was 13 or 12.
Oh, wow.
And she started this fingernail polish company, all these cool, crazy colors for teen and preteen girls. I remember reading the story. It got viral. It was all over Yahoo and everything. Mm. Well, I went, holy, and I just started, here was the crusher. I just started my venture. And here I am, a guy in his 40s. And I look at this kid, they're saying multi-millionaire. She can't even keep up with growth. And I'm all, she's 12, 13. You know, and you just want to grab, you just, you know.
Resilience, Gary, resilience.
Yeah, what am I doing? And actually, I found myself really pissed off. I'm like, damn, this world, it's so unfair. And then I peeled back the layers. I went, okay, former investigator, this sounds too good to be true. You know, this can't be true. And I found this in a lot of stuff. And people are kind of think I'm a weird guy because I can pick apart shit. And there's a bunch of stuff I picked apart recently. We'll get into. But I started digging up. Her dad, I believe, was in a similar type of business and was way up. I think he was either in the cosmetics business or no, he was the marketing side. I think he was the marketing and his wife was on the cosmetic side, and they were both way up in their careers with a lot of extra money, a lot of extra channels. They knew exactly where to funnel the product. They knew it was one of those you went, duh. Got it. It wasn't the 12-year-old's idea. It was mom and dad's idea, and they used the 12-year-old like a marketing piece of garbage. And said, it's her idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure the kid gave them input on colors and stuff like that.
But it could have actually been the kid's but it's funny. I think what might have happened is it might have actually been the kid, and the kid might have been like this, and the parents who had no idea for a business whatsoever, but had all the practical and the academic skills to say, we can make that work. That's a really good, you've got a good why. You know what this product should be.
And not to say there was anything wrong with it. It was just, it wasn't the whole story.
It never is.
It made it sound like this 12-year-old was it Duger Hauser or whatever that guy was? Doogie Howser, when we were growing up, some genius entrepreneur, rolled out of bed one day and the next day she was a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a doctor. Exactly. He was a 14-year-old doctor, right?
Yeah. Yes.
A genius.
Delivering babies before he could drive.
Yeah. Now he does beer commercials, but,
this is true.
Hey, it's a good path.
Our Mother was an excellent show.
Yes.
That was actually pretty good. Well, that was when I actually still watched normal TV, or I don't watch any normal TV. I couldn't even tell you what show's on anymore. But no, I think that was a good way to look at that too. Is it's hard work. You got to be a glutton for punishment, because I tell you what, there's been many times where I felt like just cuddling up in the middle of my floor, crying myself into a 9-to-5 job because I couldn't take. There was days that, and the worst part is going and comparing yourself to others. Oh God,
can't do that.
Can't do that.
Don't do that. Take it from Gary, being the anal investigator I was. So what do? I come up with an idea. I start it. And I start looking at what everyone else is doing. And I start digging into all their shit. And I'm going, okay, how they structure their company. Where's it filed at? Because I knew how to find this stuff. And it was the worst thing I could have ever done. It didn't matter. And a lot of it pissed me off because being an investigator, again, I dig stuff up that I go, oh, that's how and I got in a lot of hot water with some people because I called a few people out and I went, I know how you structured your company. I know how you did your marketing and how you did this and did that. And I pissed them off. I mean, I really pissed them off. And
when I was a kid, we went to a magic show, and my father was also a professional magician when he was younger. And so I knew how a lot of the magic tricks work. And I, as a little kid, we went to a magic show, and I called out the magician on how, screamed out how the trick worked in the middle of it. You were that kid, Gary. You were good with the magic trick.
But you know what? I don't feel bad about some of it, because some of the techniques and stuff that were being used, I just didn't agree with. I thought it was pretty shitty the way some of the stuff was done. And if I could take it all back, would I have done it that way? Nah, I don't think so. It caused me a lot of headache. Caused me a lot of pain, and self-inflicted. I'm not talking these people coming and knocking on my door or anything like that, or they did some BS behind the scenes, but I look at it and go, I caused myself a ton of pain by doing that, because what I did is I got frustrated.
Yeah.
And I got focused on things that I could not control. Those were directly out of my control. I could not do anything about that. Now, was it good to look at what other people were doing? Sure. But I went well beyond that. I wanted to know how the sausage was made. Not a good idea. You don't want to do that. And so what it did is, in the beginning, it took a lot of time and effort away from what I was doing by getting too far in the weeds of what other people were doing. It went beyond research, and I'm not the only person. I thought I was the only one who did that. Now, I had knowledge to dig in different places that some people don't have, but I've caught other people said, oh, I did the same thing. I started following their blog. Next thing you know, I'm watching their videos all day, and I spent weeks not working on my stuff.
Yeah.
I was basically watching my competitor's stuff. And in the end, it helped a little bit, but I just dumped too much time into it.
Mm.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it's just it's frustrating, especially if they're further along than you are. That's frustrating. And I think going back to the other point about like the little girl and everything else, that is something, and we've touched on this a lot with just talking about these entrepreneur books that make it look too easy. And coming from now being somebody who's spent so much time in the marketing world and everything else and done these big things, it is very easy to make things look easy. And that is the trap that a lot of people fall into. And I think that's, so we've sat here, we've talked about how miserable and everything out, and it is, you know, the other way we could have come on is I could have come on and done like 2 different marketing campaigns where we did over $1 million in under an hour and blew all kinds of records. And that miserable e-commerce company, by the, what was it, like 5 years into it, it was accounting for 40% of the company's growth. But I think if that's all you hear when someone's talking, and that is usually all you hear when somebody's talking, it sounds so easy and so magical, and I'm going to be rich overnight, and life is going to be easy, and we're going to have the nice car, and kids are going to go to private school, and the wife will have sex with me every night, or whatever it is that you're looking forward to in life. Never, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's sorry, kids. It's a lie.
Yeah, doesn't happen. All right, let's jump into the second quality.
So the second quality is purpose, and that is having a reason and knowing, like, just balls to bones, why are you doing what you're doing? And it can't be, I want to make a bunch of money. If you want to make a bunch of money and that's your only reason for doing it, you are going to end up being one of those snake oil salesmen.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the people I've run across. And with my background in white collar investigations at the end and doing that, I could smell those people out. And I've been approached by, you can tell, like they'll ask you questions or hit you up on email. Hey, Gary, you do not want to be that person. Trust me, in life, it sounds great to have a really nice car, have a really nice house. The people I investigate at the end of my career were similar like that. They considered themselves entrepreneurs and do-gooders. Those guys were looking over their shoulders all the time, and they had no friends. I'll be honest with you. All their friends were business associates, and they were all petrified of each other because they all thought each other were ripping each other off. Yeah. It was really weird to watch all of it go down. And you're going, these guys are millionaires, and they are miserable because they've done it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, there's no get rich quick schemes, you know?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to build, you've got to be patient, you've got to be diligent, you know, and if you're chasing a dollar, you know, in sales, when I worked for Aflac, we called it desperation breath. You know, if you need to pay your mortgage and you go to do a presentation to a bunch of employees and you're thinking about that money, if you're thinking with somebody sitting next to you, if I sell this policy right now, I'm going to make $150 for that person. That's going to pay half of my car loan this month. You're not going to sell them because you're just that desperation breath. They can smell it, you know. Yeah. You gotta be focused, and you gotta say, all right, I'm selling this policy to this person because, you know, they may get cancer down the road or whatever, and this is going to help them. And then you can sell that policy because you can hear the passion coming out. And in the same way with doing work, you know, if you're doing it because I want to make money, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. And it's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. And I think it's interesting. Everyone these days talks about passion, and they don't talk about where does passion come from. And passion comes from purpose.
Yes.
You cannot have passion if you don't have, well, you can if you're 13 and you're passionate about everything. Or apparently 24 these days and passionate about everything. But if you don't know what your purpose is for a thing, you cannot be passionate about it. Like with my podcast, I know exactly why I do it. And it was the reason I was willing to just go 5 years and go into it for 5 years in the red at a loss year after year and just keep doing it. And I mean, and with all the same problems we've talked about, you know, here with, you know, even making jokes about it, like the wife. And I mean, she hated me doing it for years because it was a whole day. And actually back then I would spend even more time in it. It was a lot of evenings. I was sitting up in the little studio I had set up for myself with the red light on, and she couldn't come in and all these other things. And so for me, it was about keeping people safe and sound and sharing my journey of myself becoming safe and sound. And by safe and sound, it's safe in person and sound in mind, because there was a lot of Alex Jones of the world out there and stuff like that. There's a lot of really good guys too, but I wanted something that was specifically for people who were in a similar situation like me, that wanted to get into preparedness and do it in a smart, rational way. And then from there, I figured out, okay, what is the medium that I'm going to use to share this journey, and there hopefully share the lessons I learned or have learned with people that are interested in this. And that is how we came to it. And that is how it went forward. And I think, going back to books, there's a really great book on this, and somebody who I respect a lot and think is actually quite brilliant is Simon Sinek. And he has a book called Start With Why. And it is an entire book about understanding how to start a business or how to focus on a business by thinking about the purpose of what you're doing first, and then thinking about the how you do it, and then worrying about the what you do in your conversations with people. It's very markety, and so it's very good marketing, and it's wonderful. If you can nail that down, you will find the people that align with you, and that want to actually buy your stuff, and that you want to sell to. And that was a big thing for me when starting the podcast, and with my co-host that I started it with. From day one, we sat down and we figured out who are we making this for?
Yeah, that's important.
And one of the key things we said was, the people that listen to this should be people we would actually want to hang out with in real life. And that became that was the first thing that became part of the membership program, was anybody who's a member that is anywhere even remotely near me or willing to travel. Once a month, we'll go to lunch on the weekend. Once a month, we'll go to dinner in the evening, and we'll do like virtual hangouts. And I have met some of the absolute coolest people and like just fantastic friends. And it was because we started off with a purpose and then understood this is who we want to attract. And they should have the same passion and purpose that we do too. And so I think that's a huge quality. I think for other books, another one is, that's comically enough, it's actually sitting right here, Value Proposition Design. And I think once you get through understanding the why, then translating, okay, how do we take that why and make it align with the customer's why? And developing that product market fit so that what we're building is actually something that people want and genuinely will solve their problems, and isn't just us from 10 years down the road solving what we think their problem is, or in some cases what we know their problem is, but they don't know it yet, so they can't quite accept it yet. So, well,
Aaron, that's going completely against the American consumer way. I need to tell you what you need.
Yes.
Because you need another pair of shoes like those. What were those Skechers goofy shoes? Those round that supposedly made you lose weight and got. I remember when those first came out. I went, and as soon as Kim Kardashian got her fat ass in them and started pimping them out. Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. But one of the worst people. If you follow Kim Kardashian or the Kardashians for an entrepreneurship and to start your business, click this show off right now. Just go away. That is not how you start a business at all. They're not entrepreneurs. They are just whatever. But once I saw that, I went, and they made a law. They got sued. In the end, they got sued. But it's coming up with that again, snake oil.
Yeah.
Except for this, snake oil went on your feet.
Yep.
And it's just that's the thing too, is if you create something that comes from your purpose, it's pretty easy, right? Mm-hmm. It may not work. That's the thing too, people need to understand. Just because you have a good idea does not necessarily mean it's going to work. There's a ton of entrepreneurs and inventors out there who created brilliant products that no one ever heard of. It's just the way it works sometimes.
Well, even the iPhone. Yeah. The iPhone was not the first version of the iPhone. It started as the Newton. And
That's
it was just
the Newton bombed miserably.
Yes. I think my brother had one or I had one.
I had one.
One of us had one. Yeah.
I had one.
Yeah. They were awesome, but it was so far ahead of its time that it was just not the right time and not the right place.
I think
I've had a few of those business ideas too.
You know what we used them for? I used it to store my addresses on, and it had a really cool video game on it. If I remember, I could get video games for it.
Yeah.
And it was when I was in the State Department, we traveled all the time. So we had these, they're like $350 for a little device back then. And all it did was store addresses, basically. It was a digital address book, pretty much. And
day planner. Yeah, and you could play games.
And you could play games on it. And I remember.
Dope Wars, yeah.
Yeah, all that, and that's all I ever used it for. And I remember, but that's, the purpose is a tough one to find. I think that comes with experience too. Again, not that if you're young, you can't create something, but if you're young and you're going to be giving advice about something you have not experienced yet because you've researched it and studied it, I have a problem. I have a problem with that as well. And it actually pisses me off. Even older people do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking on young people, but if you're going to be teaching lessons or teaching someone something, I don't like it when it's done on theory. Because it's something cool when you went on Google and it's a hot topic right now. That is in books, by the way. There's a couple really well-known ones where they say, go on Google, figure out what's trending. That's your business. Pick the top 5. That's your business idea. Are you kidding me? Are you serious with that? And the very famous, who I won't mention, I won't do it because I've done it before and people get a little aggravated with me. But his motto was that fake it till you make it. It was just covered up, pick something. And this was the other rule. You just have to have a little more experience than the person you're teaching in it. So if you read one more book than that person, that's good enough. And I remember when I read that and I just started stewing and getting really hot under the collar about that. And this person is pretty well known in certain circles, known for saying a lot of bullshit. I would not recommend that as your business model.
And you're not that thing where people talk about, and this is in part what gives the resilience is that purpose. And one of the ways my business partner and I in this podcasting company, we knew we wanted to do it because we both sat down and said, this is something I could sit and talk about endlessly. I love everything about this. And if I can help other people do it and build one that lasts and build one that can eventually be monetized and make money and pay for itself and hopefully make some extra money, maybe even turn into a full-time thing, that is freaking awesome. And that was how we decided that we really did want to, it wasn't just a kind of fart in the wind, like, okay, now let's go see if people really want to do this. And the same thing with my podcast. It was, I want to do this. And even speaking to your thing, it was funny. That was when we were trying to figure out formats. That was one of the things we were trying to figure out. It's like, well, we actually do have a lot of experience in some of this stuff. And it was like, yeah, but you know, it'd be easier because there's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't know what the hell's going on. And it would be better if we just say, hey, we're learning this stuff. Come on a journey and you can learn it with us or laugh at us when we do stupid stuff, which is is a constant theme in that show. And to me, that's more genuine. And I wish more people would do that. It's like, you don't have to be the expert. You can just be somebody sharing your story of discovery in a thing. And people will latch on to that. People love a good story like that. So as long as it's genuine.
And the failures are funny if they're legitimate. I mean, don't get me wrong. Reality TV, now they stage all the failures and everything's staged anymore. But it's, the shows you do get, or you read a book about someone who, exactly, they just tell their journey. And that's what I did in my book. It was a how-to, but it was my journey. And I tell you, hey, I messed up here. I screwed this up. Don't do this. I did that. And I think people learn a lot more from that. And that's the reason why I ended up doing what I did is I wasn't planning to write a book about it or do anything about my project, but because people showed interest in it. That's another thing. My purpose turned into a business concept because it was my purpose and I wasn't looking to monetize on it at all. I didn't even want to tell people about it. It just came up and I said, oh yeah, what do you got coming up? And I went, oh, I'm looking at land. I just bought 20 acres. I'm gonna build a house off the grid. and all of a sudden the questions started coming in. How'd you find the land? How'd you do this? I went, oh, wait. Maybe I need to document this. And it evolved organically. And from that, I think even though I enjoy everything I've done in my business, this so far has been the most enjoyable because it came out of not even really thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It came up all upon its own. It just so happened I was doing something that I wanted to do personally. It was personally for me, period. But it ended up turning into something that I could write a book about
Mm-hmm.
and help other people along the way. So, yeah, I guess that was a long-winded answer on that. But, you know.
No, but it is true. I mean, you've got to, that is the perfect way of doing it is you've got a thing and other people are, you know how to do something and other people are interested in what you want to make and your purpose. And they're like, I want to go along with that ride too. And that was another part of the way, like coming up with this business, I kept having more and more marketing clients. We want a podcast. And it was funny because the first thing I would ask them is, why do you want one? Do you want one to actually convey information to help people do their job better or to find out more about this industry? Or is it just one big promo? And if it was just one big promo, I would tell them, no, that's not a good show. It's not going to be engaging. I can take your money all day long, but that's all that's going to end up happening is me taking your money. And so, but there are a few shows that we did end up saying, okay, this is a good idea. And this does put value back out into the world and it has a purpose that other people can latch onto. Those shows ended up doing well. So.
Well, it makes sense. No one wants to listen to a podcast of
an infomercial.
Infomercial. And don't get me wrong, there are some that are out there and they're pretty ugly. Yeah. But it not only would it not be good for the listener, but I would imagine it would be pretty painful for the people producing them too. I would expect.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't
I can't even imagine doing it. Yeah.
It wouldn't be enjoyable at all. Yeah. But I think we beat this one up. What's number?
So the next one is a sense of, speaking of beating things up, is a sense of urgency. And I think that is a problem in general. I've met a tremendous amount of people who talk about wanting to be an entrepreneur. And my first question is always, what's holding you back? Like, why aren't you working on this today? Why are you sitting here talking to me about, why aren't you off working on it? Because you're not asking me how to do it. So we're just bullshitting about that. You think you want to do it. And that is a key missing ingredient. I think you've got to, and it's kind of ties into purpose. I mean, all of these things tie into one another. It's got to be something that's burning a hole in you. It's got to be something that's like, I got to get this done. I got to get this out here. If you don't, like everything else, like I've been saying, I'm going to weed the backyard for weeks. Who knows when that's going to happen? Because I have no sense of urgency. I have no deep desire to go weed the backyard. And it's the same thing with being an entrepreneur. You either are or you're not. You're either doing it or you're not. And so you have to be constantly go, okay, tomorrow I'm going to nail these things down. And you've got to be on the ball and pushing that thing forward and always looking for ways to move it forward faster.
I think that's
my next one.
Yeah, that's actually pretty straightforward too. I mean,
yeah.
And it is, like, I think the point, and we were talking about this before we started recording, all of us is, and we brought it's not for everyone. Don't force yourself. If you don't have the entrepreneur mindset, is the best way to put it. If that's not you, don't force it. You know, and being an employee, there's nothing wrong with that. No. Nothing. Zero. There's got to be workers. There's got to be job creators. There's got to be entrepreneurs. There's got to be Kim Kardashians, I guess, unfortunately. There's got to, there's a role for everyone.
Right.
And to think that entrepreneurship is going to solve all your problems too. That's another one that it truly, for me, and me and Dwayne have talked about this, entrepreneurship is about freedom for me. That's why I look at the freedom to do what I want to do.
Not necessarily the freedom of time, and that's not necessarily the freedom. It's freedom of you're making the decision.
Yep.
Guiding your own
that's
destiny.
My urgency is I make decisions every day, but those decisions come down from somebody else. I want to be able to I want that to be my failure or my success.
Yeah.
I want to be able to move that ball myself, not rely on somebody else to push me in that direction. And that's where it's, and I guess you can wrap that into a sense of urgency, is the fact that I've got all this in my head and it's time to do it, and I think it finally hit that area. And I've tried a couple other things, but I didn't have the once again, the purpose. And without the purpose, I wasn't going to have the resiliency. But now I have that sense of urgency that, I've got an idea. We've got I think a good idea. And now I'm ready to take that and go. And I wasn't until a month and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you hit me out of left field with it. I mean, me and Dwayne have been talking about it a long time. My sense of urgency came in a different way. I'd always wanted to start my own business. I actually had my own business prior. I shouldn't say I came in completely cold. I was in real estate. I bought and flipped houses here and there. I had rentals. I wasn't full-time. It wasn't making a full-time living, but I did it for about 10 years before I left the government. So I knew how to start an LLC. I knew how to manage, employee. I knew how to do that kind of stuff, but was I an expert at it? No, not even close. And what it did is it got my basically appetite wet for kind of getting ready to take that next step to see if I could do it. That first venture was testing the waters. Basically, I'd always wanted to do it, but I said, you know what? Let me test this out. Let me see how this venture goes. It was a little rough. I did it with a buddy, and we had a good time. Don't get me wrong. We had fun doing it, but we soon both learned it was a heck of a lot more work than we thought. And we're both working full-time jobs, and not only that, but he was running his own business, another business on top of it. And so it was just overwhelming for us. We jumped in way too deep into that, but I wouldn't take anything back. After that, then the sense of urgency came later on because I was older. That's where mine came from. And that's not going to be for everyone else. I was going, okay, I'm getting to a point in my life where I either do this or I don't.
Well, that's the whole title of the show for me, Old Dude Tricks, because, I know that you got to, I've got all this stuff going on, and I keep saying, I want. And it's like, at some point, it's like, either I'm going to be too old to do this, or I'm going to have to go out and do it and learn something new. So this is my new trick. I want to do what I want to do, and I don't want to do what I'm doing now for 20 more years, So what was yours, Aaron? What was your sense of urgency to kind of get out and do it yourself?
Besides your family was driving you slowly insane.
Exactly. That was a fast boat to China. That wasn't even a slow boat to China. No, I think for me, it was wanting to just build something of my own. And I think in a lot of ways, just like what you were saying, guiding my own destiny and having my own thing. And I mean, I'm a creative person. I came from a very creative background. I mean, at first chose a very creative field of study. And so I'm somebody who regularly sees businesses and things. And the way I usually see businesses, seeing a problem and go, no, that's wrong. It should be done this way. And it would be great. And then I get excited about it and I just can't contain myself. And I end up with a purpose about it. And then I realize it's a terrible idea and I get rid of it and I run off on something else. And I keep the good ones and kill the bad ones. But for me, it was the same thing. It was guiding my own destiny. I just was never really happy working for anyone else. And I think it was about 9 months ago now, I actually did dip my toe back in the corporate world. A really cool company threw a lot of money at me, and it was going to be catching a tiger by its tail if it really did take off the way we and it was already an established business, but it was poised to really skyrocket. And there 90 days. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm out.
I remember us talking about that. And I remember when you took it, I was even kind of a little shocked with all the discussions we had. And well, that's a good transition. What's number 4?
So number 4, I would say, is patience. And patience is hard. And I think that urgency has to be tempered with patience, and patience comes in two, like there's 2 roads with patience. And one is the patience to accept that it is going to take probably 5 to 10 years. 5 years for the business to start being profitable, 10 years for the business to really be stable and actually giving you a nice living off of that. And the urgency has to be tempered with patience so that you don't run out and deliver a product that is bad or worse, harmful to the customer. To me, that is a sin. Like it goes against one of my core purposes. Like, if you deliver a product that is an absolute piece of garbage, you are either stealing money or hurting people. And to me, I can't stand those companies. And so that is where patience comes in. The patience to appreciate, and this also comes in with resilience, to appreciate that it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be the 12-year-old girl that just magically starts, printing money, and the patience to do it right.
Whoa, that must have been a good one.
What's that?
I'm saying we had a nice little dead spell there. I think we got into the patience. I was singing patience in my head.
I was too. It was going, as he was saying it, I was Rolodexing stuff too. And that brought up, that's me to a point. I didn't have any patience when I first started. I came out balls of fire, thought 12 months, I'm going to make something and get this thing rolling. And I stuck out my first book that I cringe. I hope that everyone burned and there isn't a copy of that thing available anywhere. You have the first one with the black cover?
Yes.
Oh, please burn that. It looked like crap. It was.
I'm going to put it out on the web tomorrow.
Don't. Oh, the information, actually, it wasn't bad, but I don't have a literary background. I didn't go to school to write books or to anything even close. English, I should have failed in high school. I was so bad. But, I did. I rushed that product out because I felt pressured. I pressured myself in thinking I have to get this thing out. I fired the marketing guy, screwed up, and I just stuck it out there. I fired him after, but he kind of told me, just stick it out there. Information products, no one cares as long as information's good. And it was filled with typos. It was just a disaster. I'm probably making it much worse than it is because I created it. And if you create something and you don't like it, you tend to make it really bad because you're like, but I've heard that from a lot of authors who have written their first book is they go, I cringe if I see the first one. Mm-hmm. They start to sweat. They go, oh God, please no one bring that up to sign, or please just tell me no one has it. And, you'll go to your mom's cabinet if she had it and you'll steal it out of there and you'll go throw it away for her kind of thing. But I know that. And patience is not my strong point. I've gotten a little better in my age. People who have been around me know I can be a real pain in the ass because I tend to, because I get fired up and like, let's go. I'm done. I can't take this anymore. And then I get ahead of myself and I go, oh God, should have slowed down. But I've gotten better. I've gotten better in my old age. And I actually preach patience a lot in a lot of the stuff I do now too is, hey, take your time with it. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't get sucked into that TV show kind of mentality. And the get rich quick books. That's someday I'm going to write an entrepreneur book, but why would I write it now? The story's still going on. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Well, and I could very well probably get a publishing deal to write one. I probably could pitch myself in a way and get it done. But what's the point of that? Again, patience. I'm being patient because I know that entrepreneur book is in the future. That thing's out there. I've got to get to a point where I'm comfortable, where I think I have the experience to share.
Yeah. And I think you're enjoying the ride right now. Every time I talk to you, we talk about how miserable things are, but we're like, yeah, this is great. I'd never do it any other way. I was having a great time.
Well, because that's the whole thing. That's the sense of purpose. If you didn't have that sense of purpose, you both would be complaining and you would quit tomorrow.
Oh, exactly. Well, we'll keep complaining, but we would actually quit tomorrow, I think.
That's part of the deal. If I ain't complaining, you better check my pulse.
Right, right.
You better come over, because it's just part of the beast, though, the patient side. It's hard because you get into it. Me and Dwayne went through it because you were actually this time you were on fire, and I actually put the brakes on a little bit because Dwayne was like, let's go. And I'm all, whoa. I've been through this. Let's slow it down a little bit. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're putting the cart before the horses. Trust me on this one. If we slow it down and we kind of fix the stuff and get everything in place first, that again, knowing that we're not going to make money off a podcast right away. And, a podcast, think about it. How do people get it? For free, for the most part. That's how they get it. So, you have to think of it that way, that down the road we're providing. And that's what this was for, because I think the three of us together are a pretty well-rounded group on entrepreneurship. Are any of us multimillionaires or anything like that? No, but I think we fit the typical mold. I think we fit kind of what everyone's looking for, the path most people are on. And the patience part, it's that. I would say out of it, I haven't heard the fifth one, but I would say so far, I think patience goes along with purpose. They all kind of go together. You created a great list because
Gary, when we met 20 plus years ago, patience, we couldn't have done this. We couldn't have. There's no way we could have done it. I mean, I don't see how. I don't see how 25, 26-year-old successful people are out there that have created long-term businesses, because, I did not have the patience to do it then. I couldn't have. I didn't become a father until I was 40, and I think about being 25 years old and being a dad. And it's the same thing. My patience back then, it wouldn't have worked.
Yes, somebody put something on their website. They were referencing our podcast, and they were like, "Yeah, these young guys." And I was like, "No, immature, not young. There's a difference."
I'm never gonna be mature. I know that.
Yeah.
I do have patience now.
Well, and people think I'm hard on the younger generation, and I'm really not. It's about experience. If to teach anyone anything, or to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. Me and Dwayne learned that in the military, obviously. If you haven't followed, how the hell can you lead? You know what I mean? You don't have the experience in following, so how are you going to lead from that, lead by example? Experience is a key. And that's what I was trying to teach this young kid is, hey, slow it down a little bit, go out and get some experience. You'll be better for it. Yeah. It's not the story you want to hear right now. You're thinking I need to be, up here above everyone else, when I'm saying you just got out of college, because he told me he was writing a book and he had gotten I don't know if he was bullshitting me or what, but he said he got a publishing deal. And I went, you just graduated from college.
Yeah. Who's going to listen to you?
I did. I said that. I went, I wouldn't buy a book from you. Well, I wouldn't even read it. You don't have any knowledge.
Unless it's about how to go to college, and that's about it. Yeah.
And it wasn't. And that's what I mean. It was about a topic he had gone to college for.
Oh.
Okay, that's fine, but that's not experience.
No, that's a textbook. Yeah.
It's a textbook. And God, I hope he doesn't watch this and get all mad at me. But I didn't mention him by name, but I think he would, I would hope he would agree with me now, because this has been probably a year or two, maybe 2 years now. And I think he's going in a different direction now. And I think maybe he did implement some of the things I said.
Well, it was good.
And I'm no all knowing either. Shit. I don't know it all, but I have experience. I'm a little older, man. I'm kicking the tires on 50. I think I have some information to share. Is it all good? Nah. I wouldn't follow some of my some of my advice sometimes, but I definitely wouldn't follow my advice from when I was 25. Oh, hell no. No. If 25-year-old Gary
25 was coming out of the front of your pants.
Yeah, 25-year-old Gary coming up to me would have been a hard-on looking for a sports car and a woman. I mean, that's what it would have been. And where's the booze? That's all I care. I look back now, and that's what I mean. If 25-year-old Gary came up to me and said, you know what? I got something I need to teach you. I'd go, smack me upside the head, get away from me, And that's not to be negative. It's just showing you an example of, again, be patient. Just because you're 24 and everyone's telling you now that the younger generation, because the job market is so bad, that you have to be an entrepreneur. So don't even bother looking for a job. Oh, no. How about you take a little time, get a little seasoning in you, maybe get a couple battle scars on you before you get out there and you start telling, because you got to look at, unless you're going to be teaching people 24 and younger. Now, if you're going to do that, hey, okay, I'm fine. Say you're going to teach a 12-year-old how to deal with bullying because you're 24 now, got through college, and you want to write about that. Hey, I'm cool.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That makes sense. I didn't want to make it sound like I was just shitting on every young person's idea of creating their own business or doing something. But if you're 24 years old and you're going to teach me the concepts of strength and conditioning and proper diet, and you've never trained a client, but you went to college and you went for, you're a PT major or something like that, or a kinesiology major, I'm not going to listen to a word you have to say.
The only thing I'm going to listen to a 24-year-old who graduated college is how do you get laid in college? That's it.
Yeah.
That's about it. You know?
Yeah. Or how to program my smartphone.
Yeah.
Or how to do emojis on my cell phone. That would be about
what
it.
The hell they mean.
Yeah, what they mean. Yeah, I just started using them. That's how bad I am. I found
right there with you.
I found the smiley face with the poop. I think it's supposed to, I at least I think it's poop. It's like a pile of shit with the little 2 eyes on it, and it's probably meant to be like a chocolate snow or ice cream cone or something.
No, I think it is actual poop.
I was hoping because that's where I was sending it, and
I know the finger and the poop. That's my two favorites.
Yeah, those are the ones I know. But I've gotten pretty much emojis in a conversation from someone. I go, you're gonna have to go back and put some words in there. I don't know what the hell you're talking about right now. I don't know what any of this means. But I think that's a good example of, again, if you're young, and if you're young, you're 24. Why do you need to start a business right now and feel this urgency? I would, if someone told me that and said, go do that, because it's so much work. If you're going to do it right at 24 years old, you're going to be grinding yourself into the ground. Mm-hmm. And you're probably going to be living in your mom's basement for sure. Instead of possibly, it's probably going to be for sure. And why do that? Well, how about you just wait? Be patient, get 3-4 years under your belt, figure out what you want to do. You're still in your 20s, for God's sakes.
Yeah. And I think that plays into kind of my last one, which is focus. And that is, if you don't have that focus, that your ability to say no to all or most of the fun stuff, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. You've got to say, I can't go out drinking every night. You've got to, and that's, you can't do that when you're 24. You got to go out drinking or having a good time, doing whatever blows your hair back at 24 or 25. Like, you can't do that stuff because you've got to use those hours because you're working a day job or doing something else to fund your life. And you've got to use that extra critical time to be able to get the shit done that needs to get done on time to move it to the next stage. And if you don't have that focus, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. I call it my pockets of time. I've got to take advantage of every pocket of time that I have, even at work, during a break. If I need to read something and I need to get something done, I've got 12 minutes. I use that 12 minutes to get online. I already have it ready to go, pop it up, read it, absorb it, and then try to use it the next day. So, I mean, you got to take advantage of every pocket of time if you're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not playing around on Facebook or Twitter or these other things. It's every free minute you've got, or you've got to make those free minutes happen, and then you've got to have the focus to sit down and get shit done in those free minutes that you carve out.
I thought I thought it was taking Adderall. I could have sworn I saw that.
Sometimes that helps too, but
I thought that's what the magic key was anymore. If you need to get shit done, you go get a script for Adderall from your doctor, and you're going to get a lot of shit done. You will die in the process, and you'll have to transition to meth once you get cut off. But hey, you'll get a lot of stuff done in that short period of time.
Mm.
And I shouldn't joke about that because actually I have met people who have used that as a model in business. I kid you not.
A lot of people these days do.
They heard about it. They heard about from a buddy, said, hey, I got Adderall. My doctor prescribed it to me. I was getting older. I was slowing down. And next thing I know, I'm number one in my company and I'm crushing it. And I haven't slept in 3 days.
Yeah. You hit any of the tech startup or tech conventions?
Yeah. Yep.
Everyone there is on Adderall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all,
Yeah,
I'll sleep when I'm dead, and I'll have a heart attack when I'm 35.
Yeah, that was a joke, but I have heard that multiple times of people saying, I took Adderall, I got all my stuff done. Now I'm an addict. And, but it's a tough one because it's prioritization is a big one. And as you're young, for me, this is just me talking. If someone said, Gary, you could start your own business at 24, be retired at 35, maybe 40. And that's if you're lucky. I mean, that's if you catch it just right and everything works. Because most people think too, they start business at 24 because they've, read all these tech businesses and all this stuff that they're going to retire before they're 30 and be stupid rich. That is so far out there. I would say enjoy your 20s, have the time of your life. You'll probably be the poorest you've ever been, but it'll be some of the most fun the poorest I'd ever been was an E3 in the military. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a pot to piss. Well, I did because they issued it to me.
Yeah.
And I had to clean
$19,000 a year.
Oh, I didn't even, I remember when I got out, I was making, because I was $300 a paycheck. Because remember, I was in the barracks, so I was bringing home, I want to say $600, right around there, and it was misery. It was poor. I was poorer than when I worked and put myself through college. Was that first year in the military?
But the fun.
Always
have that weekend in New Orleans.
I had some of the most fun and memorable moments of my life. And I may have worn the same shirt 3 days in a row because I couldn't afford another one, and I didn't care. But it was a good time. And that's, if you're young, don't be beating yourself up trying to be a millionaire before you're 30. Enjoy yourself. If that's the best advice I can give, there's I don't regret starting my businesses when I did. Not one bit. Man, my 20s were fun. And not all, but there's some, but for the most part, I look back at my 20s, go, if I was running a business and grinding it out, I would regret it. I think I would definitely regret it later on in life, even though I've got a ton of money. Money doesn't buy experiences.
No.
So
money only buys stuff, and that's it.
And the way I would leave it at this too, as we said, being an entrepreneur is about freedom, because people ask me all the time, also why they go, well, why are you prepping? Why do you go live off grid? And I go, you're categorizing me. And I don't know if you're really evaluating me correctly. What I'm doing by owning my own business, running things the way I want to, having a house out in the more remote, it's about freedom. It's not about money. I don't look at the money first. I look at freedom. Unfortunately, in our society today, money equates to freedom. But you know what? I'm a realist as well. I'm not going to buck the system and go, I'm just going to barter pelts for everything. Unless I'm the most successful trapper there is. Don't get me wrong. I grew up, my stepfather trapped, and we made money that way and sold pelts. So don't send hate mail. But you have to be a realist too, that this world runs on money right now. And can you barter? Can you trade? Can people make a living off it? Yeah, some people can. But again, that's I would say it's more of an anomaly today than it is actually a rule. So with that, look at it as freedom first. That's what you're pursuing. And then the money comes in behind and allows you to get that freedom. But then again, what's your definition of freedom?
Exactly.
There you go. Now, can you get by with less money to have more time with your family and do the things you enjoy, which is your source of freedom? But again, you're still going to have some of that money, unless you got some perfect homestead, which I envy. I've seen people who have done it, but a homestead, as you know, Aaron, from interviewing people on your show, you think a homestead's easy? Those are 10-hour, 12-hour days.
Oh, easy.
Every single day. Yeah, you don't work for anyone.
But back-breaking work and 10, 12-hour days.
Yeah. But you ask those people too, go, would you do anything else? And they go, absolutely not.
Mm.
All right.
Right.
Well, are we up for rap time? We've been doing this a long time.
We were trying to approach Joe Rogan style.
I know.
We were going on. If we would have just busted out the bong and did a couple other things, we would have been right along. No, I shouldn't say.
All right, Aaron. Let's tell everybody how they can find you on the old internet.
You know, the best way to find me on the interweb is at intherabbithole.com. That is my survival and preparedness podcast with a cheeky, humorous bent, and it is intended for urban survivalists and preparedness folks. But just about anybody gets something out of it. I think people enjoy it.
All right, great. Hey, Gary, you got anything else?
No, well, Aaron, if anyone wanted to tap you for your marketing expertise or anything like that, do you got a place to go, or are you taking any more outsiders?
I am not taking on any new outside clients for marketing in particular. However, we are taking clients at Launchapod, which is we formed a company specifically for helping people with launching a podcast that lasts and turning it into a business and doing things like that. So if they're interested in that kind of stuff, they can go to launchapod.com, and we're free articles and all kinds of fun downloads and stuff there that people can take advantage of if that's something they think they're interested in.
Excellent.
All right, guys. Well, everybody, thanks for listening again. I think this has been a very informative podcast, especially for people that are looking to become entrepreneurs. And once again, we'll see you guys next week.